Farid is out with his new book, 10 Lessons for a Post-Pandemic World, and this Diwali weekend, I wanted to speak to Farid to get his sense of where the post-pandemic world is going and what we need to do to stay on top of the decadal shifts that are currently underway. Farid Zakaria, welcome and wish you a very happy Diwali.
Happy Diwali to you as well, Rahul. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
So great to have you with us. I want to start, Farid, by asking you about the US election results. We currently have a situation where despite having lost the election, Donald Trump is refusing to step down. How far do you think he's going to drag his refusal to accept the election verdict? This usually happens in tin pot countries. Now it's happening in that one country which used to be an example of what a good democracy is worldwide.
Well, look, there is a process which allows him to do this, so it's not so far that he's done anything illegal. You know, the really important distinction to make here with Donald Trump is democratic rules and laws on the one side and democratic norms and values and culture. So he is violating every norm in the book. He is violating every precedent. You know, almost all former candidates of either, you know, whether incumbent or not, have conceded before the statistical tally was final. But he wants to exhaust every possible chance. I think he's really flailing about it this time, hoping for some kind of, you know, miracle to take place. Probably, by the way, raising a huge amount of money, which essentially goes into a slush fund that he can use for whatever purposes he wants. But it won't change the outcome. The transition of power in the United States is a legal constitutional process that does not depend on the President of the United States, you know, accepting it or conceding. Those are all matters of good manners. Trump does not have good manners. It doesn't matter. He will be out of office in January.
But what the verdict does show is how badly divided America is. Joe Biden won a historic 74 million votes. But despite everything he did, Donald Trump ended up with 70 million plus votes. What does that suggest to you about the fractures that have engulfed America?
You know, it's something that's happening everywhere in the world, Rahul, and I think even in India. You are getting political divisions that are no longer purely political, but they are really cultural divisions. So if you look at the biggest divide in America, as somebody put it very well in the Atlantic magazine, the big divide is no longer about race, it's no longer about economics, it's about diplomas and density. In other words, if you live in a densely populated area and you have a diploma of some kind, you likely voted for Joe Biden. If you live in a sparsely populated area and you don't have a diploma, you likely voted for Donald Trump. So when you have these cultural and class divides, they are much harder to bridge. They are much more rooted in almost a kind of tribal identity. So people can't imagine voting for the other side, no matter who the candidate is. They have decided that as people who live in the South, who live in small towns, who have a kind of working class background, they are just never going to be Democrats. And the same is true for the urban, multicultural, you know, college-educated person in New York or San Francisco or Chicago. That person is never going to vote Democrat. And as you know, you see this urban-rural divide in India as well. You see this resentment of a kind of educated class of, you know, people who see themselves as technocrats and experts in India as well. It's happening all over the world. It's very destructive to democratic politics because a lot of democracy is about, you know, compromising and accepting that the other side has a legitimate role to govern when you lose.
Joe Biden says he wants to be president not just for those who voted for him, but equally for those who didn't vote for him. To what extent do you think Biden could succeed in healing these wounds and trying to bridge this wide gap that's now engulfed the US?
Look, leadership always matters. The skill of a political figure always matters. You know, as I say in my book in the last chapter, you know, nothing is written. You know, these issues can be. Human beings have the choice and the ability to make very large differences in their countries.